when I started this company 19 years ago, after taking a family business, growing it from about, call it 3.5, 4 million to $50 million, did that in a pretty short period of time, 9 years, and then left that business. And 19 years ago, started this one. And on day one, all entrepreneurs can appreciate this. I kissed my wife and I said, honey, I'm going to go out and meet with my mentor and go, talk about the next business we're going to start. And I came home with a 4,000 square foot lease, 11 employees, and a $55,000 a month burn. And my wife was like, honey, you said you were just going to go hang out with Bill. And I'm like, baby, I'm in action.
What's up, y'all? You're listening to the Carrot Cast podcast, the podcast with a funny name, but a big mission. We help thousands of real estate investors and agents grow rock solid mindsets, do better marketing so that you can build a business of freedom and impact. I'm your host, Trevor Mock. Let's dive into today's episode. What's up, y'all? We're coming back at you with the last final session of the Carrot Summit for this year. And we've had some amazing guests throughout the summit, both on the investor side, on the agent side, and what we call hybrids. Tons and tons of the hybrid action here at Carrot, where both investors and agents are working together, or you're one and the same, really solving the problem for the sellers and buyers even better. And so before we wrap up the summit, you guys have had a chance to really learn how to get more leads, how to build a business, how to win back more of that freedom in your business as an entrepreneur. And one of the guys that I've really looked up to for many years in this space, especially on the real estate agent space, I've got on to close this out today on a really big high. So I want to make sure that everyone isn't just taking this event and has a bunch of notes and you go on your merry way doing exactly what you were doing when you started this event. I want to make sure that when you guys are leaving this event, you actually go and take action. You actually go and take not just motivation, but you take the actual action plan with the motivation and couple it up into momentum. So I'm going to introduce you guys to today's guest to close this out in the summit, Mr. Tom Ferry, the #1 real estate coach in, I'm going to say the world. I'm going to say the world, the #1 real estate agent coach in the world. And welcome on the summit, man. Pumped to have you on here.
Hey, Trevor, thank you so much. And hey, everybody, how about a nice round of applause for the Carrot crew for throwing on such a great event?
Dude,
let's go, right? Let's go, man.
Right behind the wall. They've been running it back here. We got Brady, Braden, and the rest of the crew. So Tom,
outstanding.
Dude, I'm pumped to have you on here for several reasons. We're going to talk about a little bit of how the market is changing and how is that impacting, especially the retail side. Want to talk about how can people leave this event and really take what they've learned and put it to action, because you're one of the best in the world at that. But first, I want to dig in and let you introduce yourself for those, especially in the investor side, that may not be as familiar. And then we're going to dig into some really actionable stuff. So Tom, who the heck are you for everyone who might not know who you are, which isn't a whole lot of them?
Well, first of all, thank you. And look, I think the fast version would be if you Google me, you could really see everything.
Yep.
I'm born and raised in Southern California. Both my parents worked at Disneyland. My dad flunked out of college as a speech and communication major, which is kind of funny because he became a pretty notorious public speaker for the last almost 50 years.
Yep.
Mom was, as I mentioned, working at Disneyland. So she was a Mouseketeer, before the TV show. She was one of those, pulled out of the lineup by Walt Disney and basically said, hey, you 5'11" girl, go walk around all the people that are, showing them the parks, right?
Yep.
So I kind of grew up in this interesting environment where on one hand, I had this crazy high-powered entrepreneur, and on the other hand, I had this crazy artist. I'd come home every day and they'd be like, the Sound of Music would be playing on the record player, right? And my dad would be trying to figure out, how do I take over the world? So it was the perfect environment for someone like myself, who is both an entrepreneur's entrepreneur as well as a high creative, right?
Yep.
If I were to summarize my entire life, I would probably wrap it around the book by Dr. Carol Dweck, The Growth Mindset, right? And it was only a couple of years ago when I read that book, but it really crystallized my entire upbringing, my experience, all the mentors I've had, all the coaches I've had, and all the businesses now that I've invested in. So Trevor, I've had about 1,000 people pitch me on investing in their startup. I've invested in 90 of them. Yep. I've had 7 triggers already. Like many of you out there, I'm also a real estate investor. I just, I'm closing on, knock on wood, an 89 unit building down in Galveston. I just bought a 9-plex here in Dallas. So I've loaned money to a lot of fix and flipper friends of mine. But the core of my business today is working with people that want to figure out a little bit of mindset and a whole lot of strategy whether it is top of funnel, middle of the funnel, bottom of the funnel conversion, which you guys crush at. So kudos to you, whether it's on the investor side or the agent side.
Yep.
Or today, one of the bigger trends is how do we help people build the right team so they can leverage their life and not just be working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I say that not from like theory. I say it from when I started this company 19 years ago after taking a family business, growing it from about, call it 3.5, 4 million to $50 million, did that in a pretty short period of time, 9 years, and then left that business. And 19 years ago, started this one. And on day one, all entrepreneurs can appreciate this. I kissed my wife and I said, honey, I'm going to go out and meet with my mentor and go, talk about the next business we're going to start. And I came home with a 4,000 square foot lease, 11 employees, and a $55,000 a month burn. And my wife was like, honey, you said you were just going to go hang out with Bill. And I'm like, baby, I'm in action. So today we have almost 400 people in the company. Wow. We're in 29 countries around the world. I am the CEO, but really what I am is the chief strategist, not just for the company, as well as for now today, nearly 15,000 clients, as I mentioned, in 29 countries, coaches in 7 countries. So basically, Trevor, I spend all day long in the problem.
Yep.
Does that sound familiar?
Oh, 100%. 100%.
Right? Everybody came to this event because they had an itch to scratch, but more than likely you had a problem you were trying to solve. So I hope today we could talk a little bit about management methodology, and we could talk about the 5 and 3 concept. And I might just, I'll share the 5 and 3, and then we'll get into whatever questions you have.
Let's do it.
But so I just finished, let's see, I've done 3 live events so far this year where we were in person, right? So I had a couple thousand people in Las Vegas, and then a couple thousand people watching virtually around the world. And as the event ended, like yours is ending today, everybody had a ton of ideas. And let's be clear, the ideas are from the great presenters, right? From the CEO here, Trevor. It's from the other guest speakers. It's from the people that you meet online and offline that are sharing their experiences. We are the kind of people that we absorb all these ideas. But here's the hook. How many of you actually have more time to do more stuff? So I say, let's find the 5 most important things that will move the needle for you. And you have to define what moves the needle. Is it more deals to hedge against inflation? Is it helping more buyers and sellers if you're on the residential side? Is it, building up a portfolio that you ultimately want to sell? Is it creating incremental margins on your fix and flips, right? Is it finding another lead source? Well, all those different ideas require time and intention and focus.
Yep.
So here's the thing I say to people. All right, so I'm a CEO, right? You're the CEO of your business. I don't have any more time for a new idea unless I say, here's the new 5 things. What are the 3 things we're no longer going to do?
Gotcha.
You got to be honest with yourself, right? So Trevor, a buddy of mine called me recently and he said, hey, let's do a 30-day, 1-hour meditation challenge. And I said, that is such a cool idea. I'm so excited for you. And he said, what do you mean? Like, you're not going to do it with me? I'm like, brother, I already get up at 4:45 in the morning.
Yep.
I'm not going to now get up at 3:45. Like, I'm making that choice. And there's nothing in my calendar that I can remove. So it's a great idea. I just don't have time for it. And I really want to stress to everybody, you got all these ideas. You now have to go back and look at your business and say, when this conference is over, okay, what do I do that's no longer maximum leverage?
Yep.
What am I involved in that is no longer what we would all call the highest and best use of your time? Right? You got to be honest about it, right? There was a time in my career when if somebody said, hey, Tom, will you come to an office meeting and speak to 30 agents and talk about what your events are doing and what you guys are all about? And I would say, yes, I'm trying to do 15 of those a week. And I did that for the first 3 years. But at a certain point, as good as that was for my business to build in the beginning, it was no longer the highest and best use of my time. It was better for me to hire an army of salespeople to leverage. The same thing applies to you, right? Like, are you out actively looking for deals every single day? Or are you trying to level up and spend more time with developers, or for the investors, more time with agents to say, what do you see? What are the opportunities? Let me be your first. It's all about leveling up. So again, high level, you're going to add 5 things. You got to remove 3 that are no longer the highest and best use of your time. Does that make sense?
Dude, I absolutely love that, because guys and gals, the thing here is it simplifies. Number one, we're not saying to go do 10 things. We're not saying just to pick the one. Do the 5, rank order them, and impact, rank order them, and whatever's going to be most important to your business. But the thing that most people don't talk about, which Tom did, which the 5 3 is important, is remove 3. Take the 3 at the bottom that are the least impact, or they're draining your energy the most. That's what I really like to focus on, is what drains my energy. And like we talked earlier in the summit, y'all, go after the things that give you energy, add value to the world, and then find those people to plug into your team where they can do the things that drain your energy and gives them energy. I love it, man. The 5-3, dude. I've got a couple questions for you. So on that note right there, you've been amazing at building teams. You mentioned it before as well, that's one of the things that you focus on with your clients in a big way is building teams. We've got a lot of mutual clients, the FAR group out of Spokane.
Of course. Yes.
Such amazing people. And I've seen them from the start go from just Krista and Aaron to building a team. And what advice would you give as people are looking at their 5 things they're going to be doing, the 5 things they're going to stop doing? If they're a solo operator right now as an agent or as an investor, or maybe they have a person or two, what are the first couple things you would suggest as people should be building up that team?
So it's interesting. I just completed a 2-day workshop, the second big event of the year in Nashville. Had a lot of people there in all various states, probably like you have here. I had one particular gentleman in the room who has 1,600 agents and 40 support staff. I had the #1 brokerage in all of Georgia, the CEO of the company, Dan, my personal client. I've had the CEO of Home Services piping in throughout it. He has 90,000 agents, right? Home Services, Berkshire Hathaway, commercial division, investment division, mortgage company, title, escrow, et cetera, to brand new agents sitting inside the room. And my answer is always the same. You ready? #1, you need to hire a personal assistant / operations. The person that's going to take the mundane tasks and convert them into software, into routines. So you're no longer working from memory, but instead you're working by design. So that first assistant, right? And in the beginning, look, as an investor, I think of my mom, who's never really had a job. She's 76 years old. She owns hundreds of properties, lots of commercial real estate. She came here from Honolulu, Trevor, at 18 years old, right? Little, ukulele in hand, as she says, full Polynesian. And her first boss of the only job she's really ever had was a guy named Billy, who's a family friend who owns 5,000 homes between Santa Barbara and San Diego. And he taught her how to buy real estate with no money down. Now that's going way back in the days.
Dude,
for some of my
Carlton Sheets stuff right there.
Carlton Sheets, brother, you got it, right? The original infomercial. So when her and I were sitting down one day and we were talking about building a family office, the first thing I said is, okay, Mom, I love you. I've been inside your office. There's 7,000 sticky notes, 500 yellow notepads, and files everywhere. And some of those files have checks in them. So this is not an organized office. We need an assistant, right? And everyone says the same thing, including my mom. I can't afford it. It's too hard. No one could do it better than me. Look up here. Shut the beep up. You with me? Anybody could do it better than you, but more importantly, it frees you up to do your highest and best. So that's the first role. The second role is either for the investor or the agent. Ready? Transactional support or analyst, transactional support or analyst, or a marketing coordinator. Transaction support or analyst, and I'm bifurcating those between agent, transaction support, investor, analyst. Right? If you have that role, now you're like this. Okay, I've got my assistant in place. I'm out leveraging, I'm out networking, I'm out meeting and greeting, I'm out looking at deals, I'm out trying to find listings, trying to find sales. I'm doing my highest and best, right? But now I've got transaction support or an analyst. So when I go, hey, look, I got another one. You're handing it off to somebody else who's an expert at going through the process, whether it's the analyst who's going to look at the deal, right? Create a spreadsheet on it. Let's look at all the numbers, look at the rents and everything else. Does it make sense, right? Especially with supply chain issues right now that we're dealing with and how long it takes to get products, et cetera. So someone doing that, or that marketing coordinator who's going to spend all of their time making sure you have enough top of funnel opportunities, middle of funnel nurturing, and bottom of funnel conversion. right? The whole game, every business is basically sales and innovation, right? Which you could argue it's marketing and innovation. And the vast majority of the investors that I know, now understand guys, like Tarek's been a pal forever. Jesse, who had Vintage Flip, he and his wife, Jesse's been a client since he was an REO guy back in 2007. So I have lots of clients that are on all the television shows that whether it's the fix and flip stuff or it's just the $1 million listing stuff, every single one of them needs to have somebody managing their marketing because you got a ton of ideas. But the second you go, okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start doing this on TikTok. I'm going to start doing this on email. The second you're doing that, even though marketing is a leverage point, it's still not the highest and best. So I would say you start there and then investor or agent. Once you have that in place, your business is going to double and probably triple. Think about it, everyone watching right now, because what happens if you have nothing else to do except find deals, find appointments, go on presentations, negotiate deals, do the follow-up and convert. If that's all you have to do, then that's all you have to do. So you know what you do? You do that all day long and you become a cash cow versus a fading winner, which is what some people are, right? Like they know they should do it, but they can't leverage themselves. So at the end of it, then you know what you do? On the investor side, we would call them bird dogs. You get a bunch of bird dogs that are out finding deals for you. And on the agent side, you're hiring a sales agent or 5 to leverage the buyers or the parts of town that you don't want to go to or the price ranges you don't want to go to. And that's how you win.
I love it.
Now, that's a long answer to a very complex question. But hey, if that's common sense to you, but it's not common practice, then it ain't common sense to you.
Dude, this is so good, man. Guys, I wrote down my chicken scratch here. I'm gonna recite it back for y'all because, like we said, as we've gone through with the whole summit, we've been teaching you guys online marketing, offline marketing, evergreen marketing, which is what we focus on here at Carrot, mobile home, the agent side of the business, on retail, or on the sellers and buyers. We've been teaching you multifamily on this with my friend and client, Tim Bratz. Guys, there's lots of ideas, but we're primarily focusing, how do you build a business that gives you the freedom to be able to make impact that you want to make in the world? And one of the biggest ways to get freedom, y'all, is exactly what Tom walked through, is you have to build some sort of a team. And my executive assistant, Jen, you guys had a chance to be on a session with her today as well. She's been my EA for over 10 years now, right at 10 years now. And so take what Tom said, go get that first client. If you have that business coming in, actually, a question for you, Tom, here. At what point should someone hire that first person? Is there a revenue number for you that you're like, hey, this is kind of the trigger, or any other thing you look at?
I hired 11 people on day one, so I'm probably the wrong person to ask. But typically what happens is you get on a run rate of, let's call it $100,000 in gross fees. And once you're at that run rate, you have to level up or you get stuck. So there's no, it's really more about resources versus being resourceful, right? I've watched a ton of people literally go, hey, there's 700 college campuses near me. I'm going to go post something on their, whether it's digital board or on the actual boards, it says, learn to make $100,000 a year from real estate, right? I'm taking on one intern for the next 120 days. And just like that, you got free help. That's being resourceful, right? I tell people all the time, if you have like a 22-year-old who's sitting in your basement smoking weed and playing video games, there's your first assistant, right? They're probably tech savvy. You can get them to work. Like, be resourceful. Don't blame resources, right? Instead, figure out a way. Because if you don't, Trevor, you're a CEO. I'm a CEO. We spend all day long getting punched in the face with problems, right? We thrive on it. Whoever solves the most problems makes the most money, period.
Love it. Love it, man. Guys, go get the EA. Use our session from this summit on the EA. Number 2, transactional support, whether you're an agent or an investor. And that might look like marketing support, transactional support. You go out there and be the rainmaker, close the deals, have people supporting you on the back end. And then number 3, to scale things up, then you go out there and get more people to then bring in more deals. Bird dogs on the investor side, sales agents on the agent side. Guys, that's your map right there for building up that team and gaining back more of the freedom this year. Tom, a couple more questions, man. I've got one mindset question, then one market question, then we're going to wrap this puppy into a bow. And the market question first, we're going to end on the mindset. So you're really, really deep in with a lot of your clients in the real estate agent side of things, retail side of things.
Yeah.
Where do you see the market going with the best version of a crystal ball that you've got? Where do you see the market going and the challenges and opportunities that are going to be posed for all of the real estate industry?
Your timing on this question is rather perfect. I literally just interviewed Ivy Zellman, the
Cool.
oracle of housing, commercial, residential, mortgage, everything, for an hour, like literally, 25 minutes ago. So I asked Ivy this question. I said, okay, inflation, inventory, interest rates, and a war.
Mm.
Are we going into a correction? That's how the interview started.
Mm.
Do you want to know the simple answer?
100%. Yeah.
She said, no.
Mm. Yep.
Now, when Ivy Zellman is that definitive, and again, if you don't know who Ivy Zellman is, you should Google her. She has a free newsletter. All of you should sign up for it on both sides, investors, et cetera. We talked about, for example, one of the things today. So we had 9% more transactions in the US in residential last year than the year prior. 100% of the 9% increase came from, you ready? Here's my notes. Private investors, second homeowners, fix and flippers, SFR multi-groups, and institutional buyers.
Yep.
So I always say, especially when I look at like the KKRs of the world and all these other companies that are investing and buying as much property as they can, why are they doing that? They're buying it because it is the greatest hedge against inflation.
Yep.
It's the greatest hedge. When I asked her, will we see a spike in REOs? Right? We literally, her and I, because I've known her for a long time, we chatted about the fact that we all understand that people getting kicked out of their houses has been happening since the beginning of time.
Yep.
It is just a part of the economy. Rents going up and it making it less affordable for people happens all the time. It's just a part of housing. REOs are also just a part of housing.
Yep.
Because of the moratorium on payments during the pandemic, a lot of people that probably should have been foreclosed on weren't foreclosed on. So now when you read a headline that says 100%, year over year growth in foreclosures, it went from 1 to 2.
Yep.
Woo! But be clear, if you go back and you're a student of this business, we know for the last 40 years, about 200,000 houses on average get foreclosed on every quarter in the US.
Yep.
The only time that got spiked was obviously 8, 9, 10. There was a big increase there. And that was 100%, the banks, right? We'll just blame the banks. And then obviously during this time period, it dropped to nothing because of the moratorium.
Yep.
So the simple answer is, I'm going to keep buying as much real estate as I can. I'm telling all my clients, innovation is the solution today. We cannot rest on our laurels. We have to continually find new ways to deliver value to our customers. And value today is the removal of uncertainty.
Yep.
If you don't write that down,
Yep.
I don't care if you're talking to an investor or a 60-year-old seller who's thinking about selling their house and making a down payment for their kid to buy a home and buy their home in a sand state. Uncertainty is what kills businesses today. For people that don't understand, you're an educational source for buyers and sellers. You're an educational source when you're talking to that investor about why you're the right person for this property, why they should do the deal with you and not somebody else, especially because so many of the investment deals today are off market. If you're not leaning in today to learning everything you can about the micro and macro economy of real estate, of housing, you're putting yourself behind the 8 ball. So here's a fun fact, Trevor, maybe you don't know. Last year, I spent a fortune on trying to find the correlations of who's selling the most houses in the US in real estate on the residential side. Would it shock you to hear that across all MLSs in the US, the top 1% of agents sold 17.5% of all the homes?
Dude.
And the top 25% of agents in all MLSs were responsible for 73.5% of all the volume, transactions, GCI, et cetera. It has never been this bifurcated. It is truly the rich and the rest. And it's hard to argue against what you guys do. Great marketing, right? Great personal brand, but they know what the hell they're doing. They know what they're talking about. They can talk intelligently with a first-time buyer about what it takes to write an offer and not to write 15 to finally get one accepted. They know how to work with that seller. So long answer, I'm very bullish on the next 2 to 4 years. Will we see certain marketplaces like Boise, Idaho slow down? Shit, I hope so. They've had 40% appreciation in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
Are we starting to see the Houston market residential and some of the places slow down a little bit? Austin? Hell yes.
Yep.
The world moved to these places. Nashville, not yet, but eventually.
Mm-hmm.
But slow down doesn't mean correction. It means normalize.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's the difference.
Spot on right there, man. And guys, that's one of the biggest takeaways I want you guys to have from our market conversations during Summit. And we've been saying the same thing. Things are going to be normalizing a lot more, which is going to create a lot of opportunity, but also it's going to create challenges for people who aren't willing to change. And one of the things that Tom's amazing at, I want you guys to go follow him on YouTube, follow him on Instagram. We'll put it through the chat box for you guys. Amazing at video marketing. And one of the things that you guys should and could be doing, like we've talked about in Summit, we were digging up our data the other day here at Carrot, and we were looking at what is the highest converting traffic source of all the traffic that's coming into our clients. Millions of visitors a month come into our clients' websites, hundreds of thousands of seller leads and buyer leads come in. The highest converting traffic source of all of them, not the highest by volume, but highest converting is YouTube by far. Over 8% of all the traffic from YouTube ends up landing and converting on a Carrot site as an opt-in lead. That doesn't even include the phone call leads, guys. So double down on YouTube. We talked about it here. Go follow Tom. He's amazing at that. And that's also one of the ways you're going to stand out and show that you have the expertise, show that you have the skills to solve their problem well.
Hey, by the way, you just synthesized Chet Holmes, the late great Chet Holmes. I don't know if you ever met Chet.
Dude, amazing. Ultimate sales machine.
Right.
So good.
What was rule number one? Educational marketing converts the highest. Whoever is the educator is the one that converts, right? Whether it's on the investment side, residential side, mortgage, doesn't make a difference. So spot on.
I love it.
So you want to talk a little mindset? Because I know we got to be mindful of time.
Let's do it, man. Let's pull this into a close. And Tom, I want to toss it over to you. So with the thousands of people tapping into the summit, what's the biggest thing that they can take away mindset-wise that successful clients of yours are doing? And let's send people off in the summit with an amazing way. We got a closing session right after this, guys. But Tom, take it away, man.
So I'll tell you a story. So I'm 51. So when I was like 39, my kids would have been about 8 and 10. And a friend of mine, big time risky developer, calls me, this must have been now almost 18 years ago, and says, I just bought a piece of land between Cabo San Lucas and La Paz. And he's like, I want you to fly down and see it. So long before I took my kids, I fly down there and we're standing up on this hill and we're looking down at this 1.5 mile bay. And the bay, I'm like, what's the name of the bay? And he's like, Bahia de los Muertos. And I was like, dude, I don't speak a lot of Spanish, but that sounds like Bay of the Dead, right?
Yeah.
I go, not a good marketing name. He's like, I know. I said, what are you going to call it? He goes, Bahia de los Sueños. And I was like, oh, Bay of the Dreams. And so because he's a CEO and he's a client, he ended up selling his company to Warren Buffett for like $100 million, like super guy. So we're working together. Long story short, he invites me down to do a couple of days with him on marketing and a couple of his top, team leaders and marketing people. And so we're there and it's a beautiful setting, as you can imagine. He says, bring your in-laws who I love and bring your boys, bring your wife. So we're all there and we go down to the little, Mexican restaurant kind of down on the beach. And literally we're walking back to his 60,000 square foot, under Palapas, mega mansion, and all beautiful, but it's like, 10, 30, 11 at night. My wife says, I'm beat. My in-laws are exhausted. Clearly had too many margaritas. They go up and I say to the boys, you guys want to play on the beach? They're like, yeah, right? 8 and 10, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we're on the beach. We're just messing around, but it's not like a beach with big crashing waves. It's a bay. So just trickling water, moonlight, 1 million stars. All of you should do this one time in your life. I don't care how old your kids are, or get somebody else's kids, rent them for a night, do this, because it was just magical, right? But what happened was, eventually we were just laying there on the ground looking at the stars. And my younger son is that kid that kind of like me, if he lays down, he's asleep. So Trevor, he's gone, right? Right? 7th heaven. My older boy says, Daddy, how many stars are there? And I was like, I don't know. I said, but there's this old tale that says if you put your thumb up like this and you all maybe someone did this with you and they say that just crossed out 1 million stars. So what's a very bright 10-year-old do? He puts both hands up, feet in the air and says, how many is that? And I was like, gazillion, right? And then he says, hey, Dad, how old is the earth? And I'm thinking to myself, I didn't have like Siri back then to just easily, right? So I was like, Michael, I said, I'd read in USA Today about a rock that they had found in Minnesota that, again, I'm not a geologist, but they were able to read the layers. And I said, it said the rock was like, several trillion years old. And he was like, trillion? how many zeros is that? And I was like, all right, man, let's go find a stick. And literally, Trevor, under the moonlight, under the stars, on this little, beautiful, pristine bay, he goes 100, comma 000, comma 000, comma 000, comma 000. And he's like, that's a lot of zeros, Dad. And I go, right. And then he goes, how old are you? And I was like, 38, right? So in perfect math, he writes 38 under the very last two, digits. And then he says to me, how will you be when you die? And I was like, man, that's kind of a heavy question. I said, well, Michael, there's somebody in India right now that's 113. I said, but like Papa's generation, World War II vet, right? Like stormed the beaches, all that experience. I said, most of those guys were dying at like 50. But today, most women will live to be, 89 or 90, and most men are dying at like 82, 83 is kind of the norm. Even though, Trevor, you and I both know Dr. Peter Diamandis, who's pushing the envelope saying we're all going to live to be 150.
Yep.
Right now, like that's the median. So I'm telling him this. And all of a sudden, you could just see tick, 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 tick. And he looks at me and he goes, 82. You don't have a lot of time. My 10-year-old gave me all the motivation I needed in that moment. But like all good parents, you know what I did? Because yes, I had a margarita. Also at dinner, I'm like, hey, you're right. I go, but nobody has a lot of time. I go, Michael, what do you want to do? And he goes, I want to do what Uncle Jimmy was telling about. So Uncle Jimmy's a friend who builds high rises in Chicago.
Yep.
So, Jimmy's taking him through, pieces of dirt and building they're buying and taking him into all these incredible skyscrapers he's building. And he's like, I want to do that. And I'm like, so you know what you got to do, Michael? You got to start. And Trevor, from basically 11:30 until 1:30 in the morning, we were building sandcastle skyscrapers. And he's telling me, I'm going to live in the penthouse here with Mommy and Nova. That's our dog. And he's like, and you're going to live in the basement with Steven, right? Who's asleep, and Vader, his dog. And he's like, I'm like, are you going to lease these? Are you going to sell them? What are you going to do? And he's like, oh no, Daddy, I'm going to sell them all. He's like, I'm going to sell this one for a bazillion trillion and this one for a gagillion, right? Like just making up all these numbers. Well, we're in the middle of this like feverish, passionate moment. And my very fiery Italian wife, I can see her coming down and I'm like, oh shit, I'm in trouble, right? I mean, Steven's over here asleep, his feet are wet, right? Michael and I are like sand all over the place and going nuts. And she walks down and she's like, what are you guys doing? Right? And my son, with perfect timing, looks right at his mother and says, we're building sandcastle skyscrapers because we don't have any time.
Oh, man.
We all have moments in life that whether it's a friend or a child or a mentor or a teacher or a moment that we just look in the mirror and we're like, right? But that moment has been a reminder for me ever since that we are all running out of time. TikTok. We're all running out of time. So if you need motivation, listen to me. Here's the truth. You're going to die.
Yep.
That's the reality. What you should do right now is you should go to the Google death clock, answer a couple questions, and then do what I've done for years is write the date of your death. Put it on your arm. Now you may say that sounds morbid and horrible. No, it is a constant reminder to love my wife even more, to work out and take care of my body, to contribute, to make a difference, to have fun, to not always be working, but instead live a full life. People like us don't need to be motivated. We need to be reminded. TikTok. We're all running out of time, my friends.
Dude.
Read the book tonight, Die with Zero.
Amazing.
Read the book tonight, Die with Zero. And you're going to very quickly realize climbing Monte Picchu on your list when you're 75 is stupid. Dude. Do it next week.
That's a good book.
Message.
I was looking back at my bookshelf to find that book. Don't have the book, but look at this, guys. This is gonna reinforce Tom's message. I've got my thing here, got the orange stand in it. And here's the thing, y'all. Here's the thing that I want you guys and gals to finish this with and take out of here is we might have these goals, we might have these dreams that are a year out, 5 years out, 10 years out, but every single year that we live in life, we for some reason think that the time is infinite. And I want to remind you guys with this. We talked about it earlier in the summit. One of our beloved, amazing employees here, one of our first Carrot customers ever, one of my best friends, he comes to our Carrot events and he leads and teaches those. Adrian Nez passed away in October this last year from COVID. And that came out of nowhere, guys. He was literally planning for his family moving into a new house that next month that they had picked up from a carrot lead on a flip. He had just gotten done with an amazing trip with his kids where they're passionate about baseball cards, and he put them on an airplane. They flew up to Cleveland to go to a big baseball card convention. And him and I were talking about plans for next year and the year after. And the thing is, guys, he didn't get to have a chance to have that. His kids don't have a chance to have that time with their dad. And so I want to make sure that everyone takes this to heart. Okay. And one of the biggest things is you guys are looking at the 5-3 here that Tom had talked about as we close this out. I want you guys to take those 5 and 3, and maybe one of the 5 is not related to business, or maybe it's all related to business, buying back your time so that you can put it into the things that matter with your family, with your passions, with your impact that you want to make. And so, Tom, I so appreciate you, man, with that story and driving this home for people. And guys, remember, the deals, the leads, those are a fuel and a vehicle to get somewhere specific. Those are not the end game. Those are the fuel to get somewhere specific, which is hopefully unlocking the freedom in life and making the impact that you want to make here while you're here. Tom, dude, I appreciate you big time, man, bringing your energy as you always do, helping us close this out strong. Where can people follow you? They can Google you, of course, but where can they follow you?
The place where I spend a lot of time is Twitter, right, at Tom Ferry, and of course on Instagram at Tom Ferry. I do a lot of free Q&A, which is just insane. And look, go to my YouTube channel. I think we're 500,000-600,000 views every single month because I'm putting out 6 original pieces of content every week. Educational Marketing 101. So, good model for you. And I also interview a ton of really interesting people, investors, top team leaders, CEOs of companies, innovative marketeers. So yeah, check all that stuff out. But Trevor, I know we got to wrap, so I'm just going to remind everybody, let's go.
Thank you, man. Let's go. Guys, let's give Tom some love in the chat box. Guys, give Tom some love. Tom, appreciate you, man. Have an amazing rest of the night. We'll talk soon.
All right, bro. See you soon, man. Take care, guys.